to Newington. Thanks to Newington for hosting us, Dennis. Thank you. And thanks for Portsmouth, as always, for pulling this together and recording and making sure all of our virtual folks can attend. So we'll start with going and doing roll call. We can go around and just state your name and your affiliation, but then also for the sake of our minute taker, just note if you're a voting member or not. And I can start, it's Gretchen Young, City of Dover, and I am a voting member.
Dennis Messier, Town of Newington, voting member.
I'm Melissa Paley, Great Bay Piscataqua Waterkeeper with Conservation Law Foundation, representing the stakeholder committee, not a voting member.
Jennifer Perry, Public Works Director with the Town of Exeter. I am a voting member.
I'll start. Suzanne Woodland, Deputy City Manager for the City of Portsmouth, voting member.
Jamie Houle, Director of the UNH Stormwater Center, and not a voting member. Or a member. Houle, it's Houle.
Thank you.
Brian Getz, Deputy Director of Public Works, City of Portsmouth, non-voting, right?
Supporting.
Supporting.
Team.
New support. Terry Damaris has moved on to the consulting realm, but he'll still be working with the city, just not in the city capacity. So I will be working with that together with Jamie on kind of the technical side of things.
And you get to be here and on the screen. It's
Yes.
amazing.
That's
the way you
right.
do that.
Yeah, so I'm not Brian Getz. I'm Jamie McCarty, City of Portsmouth, non-voting member.
Rest of the room.
Well, let's go. We can finish the online, then we'll do the rest of the room. So Eric,
Hi, I'm Eric Beck, US EPA. I'm not voting, and I don't think any of us voted EPA, but I'm not actually sure of that, but no, I don't vote.
no, not voting, but thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, Katie.
Good morning.
Or Katie. Katie, we have lost you.
Lost your voice.
She froze.
Just her. It looks like everybody else is moving around.
Yeah, she's frozen on my screen too, so. not sure what's going on.
Well, I can't see her last name here. What is it?
And
Ambrose. She is a voting member, City of Rochester.
I was there.
Jim, are you able to go?
Yep, Jim Steinkraus, Rath Young Pignatelli, here on behalf of Rochester, not a voting member or just a public participant.
Thanks, Jim. And then Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Williamson. I'm filling in for Renee Bordeaux from Geosyntec.
Okay, great. Welcome, Emma. Katie, we did lose you. I don't know if you want to try again or.
Good morning. Sorry about that. Katie Ambrose, City of Rochester Deputy City Manager, and I am a voting member.
Great, thanks, Katie. All right, Bernie Intercounty, City of Portsmouth. Administrator Happy again.
I'm Danielle Gato, I'm David One, and I'm now thank you, Danielle.
I'm Sally Soul from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and I'm not a voting member.
Ruben Manera, City of Portsmouth,
Great, thank you. Good turnout today. All right, we're going to dive in. Before we get going, we've got a packed agenda and we've got a number of things that have a lot of overlap. So I just want to remind everyone of that as we go through, because I wasn't really sure how to order everything. So we're going to start by going through the
You want to approve the minutes first?
yeah, well, okay, yes, let's go ahead. We'll approve the minutes from the June 23rd meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All right, motion by Suzanne, second by Jennifer. Any discussion? Katie, got something?
Yep, just a quick question. I noticed in the minutes it stated that Milton and Rollinsford reps weren't able to attend, but it looks like they were there remotely. So I don't know if we need to edit that briefly.
Yep, we can edit that. Thank you. Good catch. All right, any other comments?
I'd
All right.
accept that amendment, so.
Okay, great. Accept that amendment. All right, are we ready for a vote? We'll do a roll call vote because of Katie. So Gretchen Young, yes. Dennis Messier,
Yes.
Jennifer Perry,
Yes.
Katie Ambrose,
Yes.
and Suzanne Woodland.
Yes.
And did I miss anyone? I think I got everybody. All right, perfect. All right, so back into the agenda. Before we dive in, like I said, there's a lot of overlap, and so I wasn't sure the best way to do this, but we're gonna have communities talk about their plans. So these are the nitrogen reduction plans moving forward, talk about some of the projects we're working on. These are initiatives that aren't necessarily have quantifiable nitrogen reductions, but just kind of all of the things we're working on. Then we're going to get a review from PTAP, which is talking very quantified what nitrogen reductions have been tracked. So we're going to see what communities have been doing over the last year, and then what, and I think we're going to notice that maybe more input would be helpful, but it's going to be that is what has actually been reduced in the last year. And then a third thing that I'll bring up that I did email recently was a letter from EPA, which we won't spend a ton of time on, but it does have a number of comments about source reduction plans. So we can talk about those. I think all three of those things have a lot of overlap. So just keep that in mind as we go through the agenda today. All right, so we'll get started. Reporting out by the municipalities on the progress of nitrogen reduction efforts. And I can start with Dover. I just want to remind everyone, like I just said, that these are, this is just kind of a summary of the different types of projects that we have going. These are things that are in our capital improvement plan. I've put where I can reasonably make some estimates on what is going to be reduced. I've made some estimates, but again, these, you know, these are just guesses. Costs, a lot of it is a little bit more finalized. Some of it is just kind of what we have in our CIP. And then I've given some progress update. It's a pretty long list, so I'm going to go quickly, but I encourage anyone to ask questions as I'm going through. So we've got a Court and Union Street project that's reconstruction downtown, one of our kind of gateways into the city. That is in design right now and hopefully under construction next year. And we'll incorporate BMPs that has not been fully designed yet, but we're looking to get some good nitrogen reduction through there. There's nothing there now. Fifth and Grove, that's a similar project. Right now it looks like we have $275,000. We'll need more of that as the CIP comes together. But that will also include some new BMPs where there currently are none. Oak Broadway Central Reconstruction Neighborhood. This one is a pretty substantial upgrade. It's a pretty large neighborhood, a lot of potential. This year in the CIP process, we bumped up to a $22 million project. Now that is ambitious. It's quite a lot of money. So, you know, that will have to go through its funding process. So it's postponed to out years. It's in need of repair. So it certainly is on the docket. And I'd guess on potential nitrogen reductions, but that has not been designed. The Oak Broadway Central upstream of Broadway culvert, we're doing a master plan that's kind of associated with that same area. So we're just doing, we have Kleinfelder under contract, looking at how we could potentially incorporate BMPs and other stormwater management through there. So that's just kind of a first step. Lower Henry Law and River Street, that is under construction. I do not know what the reductions are going to be. We have about $7.7 million to do that. Excuse me, sorry, it's not under construction, it's under design. It's definitely going under construction. We also just learned that we received some SRF funding for this next project, the BMP project. We knew we had funding for the design of that. We've been working on the design. We also just received, became aware that we will receive SRF funding for the construction of that BMP. It was about $3 million in the SRF. So that still puts the city needs to figure out how we're going to fully fund that. So These are just kind of we're working on them. They are moving forward. The waterfront development, it's under design, and I'm working with the consultants to get input into the PTAP program. And so I don't know what their nitrogen reductions are. I know that there are good BMPs all through that. And it's going out to bid in the next few weeks. So that will have reductions, and I just don't know what they are yet. Oxbow narrowing, this is little, but this is the type of work that we're planning to do just constantly. So we are repaving a street, as we do a number of our streets, and it was wider than it really needs to be. I think it's about 30 feet wide, even wider. Little neighborhood, we're going to narrow that up. We already have. We narrowed it up, and then we get about 2 pounds of nitrogen reduction. So it's small, but it'll add up as part of our paving program moving forward. Tanglewood, this is one that's been in the CIP for years. We have a difficult resident, and so we are in the process of litigation and have not moved that one forward. Chapel Street Ravine.
I think we lost the audio.
Yeah, I've lost the audio on your room.
Same.
Looks like we lost the feed completely from them. I'll see if I can message them.
Well, I can see a video. The video had stalled at one point, but
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the video, just no sound.
Hey.
Can you guys hear us? Can you hear us now?
Yep.
Yes.
Laptop. Is it loud or is it really loud?
No, it's about the same.
Yeah, we can hear fine.
This one? That one.
Lost it again.
You guys can hear us, right?
Now we can.
They can't hear us at all.
We can hear you.
It says, it's showing. Hey there.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right,
Good.
we're there.
Awesome.
So we'll speak up. We put it up there. We'll just have to talk loud. There you go.
Can you hear me though?
The screen on the right. Yeah, that's as far as you go.
Where's the? Not sure. I'm not sure which is gonna work better or not. Like. As far as it goes. That's all right. Well, we're using the laptop one now. You want to try it with that?
There's a plug here too.
The cord for that is only like.
Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
coming through here, yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, no, this is working again.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
We just need to stay plugged in. Well, we can just
Yeah,
leave it
we'll
right
leave it plugged
there.
in. Switch back, one more try here.
Oh.
Okay, so there we go.
Have you still got us, Jamie?
Yep.
All right, there we go. All right.
Well, so I
Back to
was
Griff.
gonna say, as an evidence by what just happened, this is a technical meeting. We have a lot of, we're good at getting nitrogen reductions. We're not good at IT and putting on great presentations, but all right, so I'm gonna continue down. Chapel Street Ravine is where I left off. This is a cool project. We've been received quite a bit in SR funding and are potentially gonna do a large BMP in what is now a very eroded and underutilized area of the city. A dredge cell closure, that's a pretty substantial project. That actually is going to be an addition, new impervious area, because we're going to do some reuse of the path to do some parking for recreation area, but we will incorporate nitrogen reduction. So that's under construction or under design right now. Cochico outfall is upsizing and fixing very old box culvert that has some erosion issues. I'm not sure, again, not how much nitrogen will be reduced from there, but certainly a lot of sediment reduced and improvement to the overall system, flood management, et cetera. Lower Central Ave construction. This is a project that started off as a water line improvement. Then we realized that really the sewer needed to be fixed, and then it has ballooned, but I think in a good way, into a reconstruction of a whole portion of Central Ave, which is going to introduce new BMPs, reduce pavement, make traffic improvements. So another, street squeeze, introduce new trees. So that's a good example of how projects just are naturally incorporating these nitrogen reducing features. There's a roundabout going in on Joe Creek Road that has some infiltration units going in, so I don't know what the reductions are going to be there, but they will be there. Oak Street reconstruction. Some of these are just in our CIP, so I don't know what will go in, but we will incorporate BMPs. Culvert improvements on 6th Street. We have a couple of things that we've been really trying to get some funding through either the Sebring or SRF or ARPA, a number of undersized culverts in the city. And just by kind of fixing that flood mitigation, I don't think we can really associate nitrogen reduction credits exactly with those, but overall improvements to the stormwater system. Street reconstruction of Central Ave, Washington Street to Silver Street, that isn't out here, but that'll go. Reconstruction of Locust Street is on our CIP. Stormwater and flood resiliency utility development. It's an exciting project. I know I've talked about. We are just waiting for government council to approve $100,000 Sebring, and then we will bring on a consultant and really fully develop a stormwater utility, which will then go back to city council for hopeful adoption. And again, no set nitrogen reductions there, but certainly we'll make a positive impact. Storm sewer improvement citywide drainage master plan. This is about $500,000. It's in the out years, and we put $500,000 in our sewer and our water to get a master plan to really kind of plan out year CIP project. It's a lot. And so then also did this $500,000 for the stormwater, because we are treating it as a utility. So we really want to be able to have a robust and strategic plan to make improvements. Atlantic Ave reconstruction, that one's been postponed for a number of years, so we're hoping any day now that'll go. That'll have BMPs. 3rd Street and Chestnut Street roundabout. It's something that we're working with. It's the DOT, but it's actually the railroad goes right through downtown, and we're looking to do some improvements with them, and then incorporate some BMP, something. It will be a real focal point for the city, so we want to take advantage of potentially showcasing some BMPs there. Central Ave and Old Rollins to 6th Street. These are just again just improvements. pavement reduction and CV sump improvements now included as part of the pavement management annual work. And that's just we had a sit down, we decided that as part of our pavement plan, where we can, where it makes sense and where we can afford, we're going to reduce pavement. And when we have catch basins that don't have sumps or areas that really could have some infiltration units, we're going to try and just put those in as a matter of practice. So that's just a kind of a shift in mentality with our highway department. Warren Street reconstruction, that's a road with one of our elementary schools on it. That's going to be redone. That's in the Berry Brook watershed. Some of you are familiar with that, so that'll incorporate some of the LID that we've done throughout that watershed. Stormwater improvements on Old Rochester Road. So that is an area, I think, Melissa, you're familiar with that area because of some of the old septic systems. And we're going to be doing the road and try and make stormwater improvements through there as well. We have another project right near the intersection of Route 9 that we're going to try and make improvements. The drainage there is non-existent, really bad with potholes and heaving in the winter. So that's going to have a pretty substantial stormwater component. The North End sewer line extension, we've had this on the books for years and years and years. It's very expensive, it's difficult to do, but we would love to extend some sewer out to an existing septic area so we don't lose track of it. And we just keep looking for funding opportunities for that. Drew Road culvert, just another culvert we need to upsize for flood control. Street reconstruction of Piscataqua and Back River Road. That's a long road that we can certainly make improvements to. We are building a new skate park, and that's going to have a rain garden feature. And I think that's going to be in-house work done probably next summer. I think they've started some of it. And so that, that's up by our existing ice arena. There's a downtown vehicular and pedestrian master plan, kind of re-looking at the traffic and the sidewalks and it's incorporating complete streets into that whole downtown area. I don't know what they're specifically planning for stormwater, but I do know that there will be enhancements, there'll be street trees, all sorts of stuff. Well, I continue, sorry, I had to get pavement management in here twice. Cornerstone project, that's something that we did this year. It's been completed. But this was kind of an exciting project. There was a community, it was a private development. They had some failed septic to the point that our health inspector could see it and had, stopped, discontinued their ability to use their community septic system. So they were stuck in a position where they were having their individual sumps pumped out, or septic tanks pumped out every day. I mean, it was really kind of crazy. And so the city was able to work with them and extend city sewer into a private subdivision, and they had to pay the connection to the city sewer line. Now we have an easement through that private road, but it was, you can see, 285 pounds reduction by bringing all those homes off of that failed septic system to the municipal sewer line. So that was a great project, and I think really showed us how much can be gained by doing that. So actually not listed here, we just got potential SRF funds to do something similar in an area around Barney Brook down in the southern part of the city. So we're going to keep trying to push those types of projects along. And then a BMP retrofit initiative. We're working with the UNH Stormwater Center to try and get some 319 funding to look at our old detention ponds that we have, that were put in the 90s. Everyone has them, right? And they're probably doing more nitrogen reduction right now because they haven't been maintained and they've got to look like a wetland. So we hate to just go clean it out. And so what are we going to do? So we're going to hopefully bring these guys on and get some good retrofit plans. And I think that could be regionally, once we get kind of a good idea for that, I think it's something that there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's exciting. All right. street sweeping ongoing. We actually just got to have a demo of a new street sweeper with, it was an electric street sweeper this morning that Jamie joined us on. Unfortunately, staff time, which I know a number of you can relate to, it's hard to get people out there. So we are recommitted to really ramping up the street sweeping, but it's a fight with my highway guys because they just don't have staff. They don't have staff, you know, it is at the loss of something else. You'll see, oh yeah, next we have a street sweeping pilot project. So we are so excited to be part of this. Dover is really uniquely equipped to be able to do this because we'll do our street sweeping in the fall. We'll weigh the street sweeper, we'll dump it in our catch basin spoils facility, then we'll reweigh it, and start getting samples and good understanding of the organics that are being picked up in the street sweeping. But you know, that's very time consuming and it will take a commitment on our staffs. So we are doing it this year, but I don't know what the nitrogen reduction would be there, but I think it's going to ramp up the ability of all of the communities to credit their street sweeping activities. We do have a sidewalk street sweeper that we do, so we do have some reduction from that. We continue to do our leaf pickup for 6 weeks in the fall. We have a compost. We've always composted our material. It's been a less formal agreement with a person in Farmington. We now are working with somebody in the city who is able to take more compost. So we're able to really ramp up the leaf debris that we pick up in the fall. And we're composting in Dover. And then, you know, we have ideas about potentially being able to get that compost back to communities, excuse me, to residents. So that's still in the works, but it's something that we're making big improvements on. Yeah, we have our leaf litter management. So residents can always bring leaf litter and yard waste to our recycling center. Our catch basin cleaning, we've been doing the same thing for years, and I think it works really well. We do half the city each year. Our wetland buffer, we do have an ordinance that increases our wetland buffer that is upheld for all private development projects and public projects as well. Stormwater regulations, we have we've incorporated the SWA recommendations. This really isn't anything new, but it continues on the list. Electric vehicle planning requirements. So as part of our site plan review, site plans are required to show their electric vehicle readiness. And this is something that we hadn't really talked about in the past, but we're starting to see that there's obviously an improvement by not having that tail exhaust coming from cars. So the more we can get electric vehicles, I think we're really going to have some nitrogen reductions there too. Roof and solar, the city of Dover requires 30% of large buildings to either have green roof or solar. So, you know, I don't know what the reductions quantify there, but it's something. Let's see. Oh, we've had a couple of projects going recently that by regulatory could certainly have been septic. The developers wanted to use septic, and the city has worked and really put up public funds to extend sewer to keep them off of those septic, So I don't know how to quantify that. We have been doing the slow release. Oh, sorry, as part of our site plan development regulations. All new projects are required to have slow release nitrogen as part of their landscape plan. Enforcing that, I think, is going to kind of tie back into implementing a stormwater utility. Right now, there's very little enforcement, but that is something that has a lot of positive potential. Leaf litter management. So I think I'm tracking additional leaf pickup. The city organic fertilizer program, again, we do all organic fertilizer slow release. And so across all of our city properties, that actually has a pretty substantial impact. We continue to talk about and support a fertilizer ban and reductions statewide or regionally at least. We do our fertilizer outreach program. It's really over what is required for the MS4, but also, you know, part of the MS4. Pet waste and outreach education, leaf and yard waste outreach education, septic system outreach. We really kind of did what Exeter had done in the past and sent pamphlets and information to every septic owner in the city. And above and beyond outreach work that the city does, we are advocating for some statewide nitrogen reduction in the septic permitting. I think that would be at the DES level, but has a potential to do some nitrogen. Storm system improvement. Yeah, again, sorry, that's a 500,000 master plan. An idling policy. We are looking to reduce idling downtown. We do a lot of CMAT work, enhanced lighting, traffic light improvements. So, you know, all of that works. And then we're improving our electric vehicle fleet. We're incorporating new vehicles. Right now we've got 4 EV units, but we're bringing in more and more as we replace the older. Other efforts, inflow and infiltration. We've got a lot of I&I projects going. I won't get too in depth in these, except to say that that reduces the peaks down at the wastewater treatment plant, which has an improvement on that whole system. Continuing to extend sewer into septic areas, a commitment to exploring BMPs and participating in innovative initiatives like the Berry Brook, like other projects, training and commitment to innovation, professional staff. I think one I just wanted to point out, we've got Dr. Jackson Kaspari in our planning department, who is he got his PhD in, I believe it was environmental stewardship or sustainability, but he's our resiliency coordinator. So yeah, he's doing work that I don't actually even know all of the things he's doing. Water quality BMP standard practice for the city reconstruction projects. That we had our stormwater resiliency ad hoc committee that continues to participate in DUC and other committee meetings. So, you know, keep that discussion alive. And we just redid our utility master plan as part of the planning department's master plan, and highlighted the incorporation of LID and nutrient loading reductions. The pilot projects, we've got the stakeholder pilot project, and we do have the catch basin spoils facility, which is, you know, we're really bringing that online, seeing how it's working, you know, giving tours. I think I've got the Seacoast Stormwater Coalition folks coming in October to take a look at it. So we're getting the word out there. And then our wastewater treatment plant is continuing to perform very well. We did have one spike in April, I believe it was, due to massive, but you know, Dennis is shaking his head, he knows probably the same storm. So we're looking to incorporate an additional treatment train. We've got a new secondary clarifier coming on, and keep doing that I&I reduction to really get control over these storm events that cause massive peaks. That is what I've got. There you go. Well, it's cool though, and you know, I love doing this because we have a brainstorm with my staff and the environment, the EV vehicles. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, totally, that helps. So, you know, it's fun to go through this and think about all the different things that we're doing. Any questions? All right, thanks for listening. I'm gonna pass it to you, Jamie.
Great, thank you, Gretchen. So we'll start with the wastewater treatment facilities. They're continuing the new plan at Pierce Island's continuing to work as designed. We don't have a full growing season's set of data yet, so we can't report on those at the moment, but trends from last year are continuing. Yeah,
Do you have a list on the screen you can share?
sure.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And I've got these right here. Anyone needs a-
How's that look?
Not a small print, but
Let's see if I can help
also
that.
Gretchen has some
you
hard
want this
copies here.
oh, we got hard copies.
Yeah.
Here. Brian.
There you go. Nice.
That better?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So planned structural BMPs for the next few years. We're continuing to work on our Islington Street project, phase 2. Final designs just been submitted last month, and construction's planned for next year. What you're going to see, there's a trend in a lot of these projects, is that, you know, it's a lot of sewer separation projects where the aim is to, although we're increasing stormwater discharge, we're reducing the amount of CSOs, which are, you know, the main contributors to nitrogen input into the system. So I'm not going to go into big detail on these. I'm not project manager on any of them, but so we've got our Islington Complete Streets. Beverly Hill Road is an uncurbed road. We're adding bike lanes and shared use path along there. It's going to be going to a stormwater gravel wetland, treating approximately 17 acres. Willard Ave is another sewer separation. Union Street's another sewer separation. Those are looking to begin work in the next year. Fleet Street, final design and permitting are to be completed next year. Corporate Drive drainage upgrades, those are underway actually. Again, improving roadway, stormwater, water quality units are being installed, treating approximately 5 acres. Let's see. You know, as part of our MS4 requirements, we submitted a list of potential BMPs on municipal lands. We'll be assessing that list, looking to install a BMP in the next year or two. And then, you know, a lot of these items are similar to what Gretchen went over, so I'll kind of go over them a little bit more briefly. We're continuing to do street sweeping. We sweep all of our streets on a 4-week schedule, you know, April through November. So we continue to pick up curbside leaf litter on a weekly basis for all of our residents. Continuing our catch basin cleaning program. We've you know, we're cleaning more than 25% of all of our catch basins each year, averaging around 600 catch basins a season. We're continuing to administer our improved redevelopment criteria for stormwater BMPs and stormwater regulations for any area of disturbance greater than 15,000 square feet. So we've in the last year had a number of projects that are now hitting that criteria and having to provide design for stormwater regulation, stormwater infrastructure in their projects. What else is we're continuing to use our liquid biological soil amendment, which is our compost tea application for all of our recreation fields instead of using fertilizer. We've continuing outreach, public outreach and education programs for fertilizer use. We support a statewide ban of using high nitrogen synthetic fertilizers. Our pet waste outreach and education programs are continuing, leaf and yard waste outreach, so encouraging proper leaf and yard waste management, so that pairs with our leaf pickup on a regular basis. The Water as Memory exhibit at Strawberry Bank is still there and open to the public to come and view. Let's see, and our continued outreach for septic system outreach. Other efforts, we are in the middle of connecting over 88 homes from septic into a low pressure force main system that connects to our sewer treatment facilities. So we're right in the middle of it. If you've gone down Sagamore Ave recently, you're hitting that construction. Continuing to look for and purchase conservation easements and land surrounding our Bellamy Reservoir. We are continuing to explore long-term funding for a stormwater program. We've got meetings in the near future to present options to our city council. And then, you know, to tag on to our increased stormwater regulations, part of that is the utilization of the PTAP system. And so we're using that system to verify that projects are meeting the requirements of the increased stormwater treatment. And then that is being fed into our online permitting system, which then is going to provide us a mechanism to follow up with properties for future inspection and maintenance requirements that we have. Make sure that they're maintaining those structures in the future. So that's all I've got. Be happy to go into more detail on any of these items.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I'm just gonna highlight a couple of other pieces. Namely, Jamie mentioned the Sagamore Sewer Project. The city council just last month, I think it was, bonded an additional or authorized bonding of an additional, it was 1.2 million. So that we would have the funds to continue to support those connections to the new municipal sewer. So really trying to make sure that people take advantage of the sewer that's going in the roadway and get off their septic. So there's been a very recent strong financial commitment to make that happen. Let's see, and in addition, again, to just follow up further on something Jamie mentioned, we are anticipating that in mid-October, we will be briefing our city council on the advantages of a stormwater utility and looking to get their support to continue to move forward in that process. So that's a work session that we'll have sometime in mid-October is what we're expecting. We're going to hear in terms of the date that they would prefer to see that information. So, Melissa, I'll try and make sure that you're aware of that date, but if not, ping me because I think they're going to set that date next Monday night. So,
would you share? I'll share it with
Sure.
everyone, you know, and
Yeah.
people want to watch or.
Yep.
We'll see. Yeah.
And then the one other piece is, I know Jamie mentioned right at the beginning, the wastewater treatment facility. So just following up on that, the city has been continuing to operate both facilities very efficiently and effectively for the nitrogen removal. We are really well below our permitted amounts, which is why when you actually look at our handout, you know, it's 35,000 pounds of nitrogen below what our limits are. So we are not, yeah, we're not holding back. They're being fully operated. We're taking advantage of the system's capabilities, particularly at Pierce Island. So we are well below that 8 that we're, it's now different than the breathing nitrogen permit, but just know it is a big amount and we're going to continue that effort.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you get through the Willard, Union, and Fleet Street sewer separation projects, is that it for your CSOs, or you have additional?
Oh, we have to continue to assess and then where do we go next? So
Yeah.
it's build and measure and assess. So I mean, we've had some great success, but you know, found the next areas that need to be done and that.
So how many will you still have after you have? the
Oh, you mean,
now?
well, they will still have the
three
threes.
outfalls.
The whole key though, I mean, is that we just keep reducing the amount that
It's going
actually
down.
occurs. So, the flashy weather events are something that, you know, everybody in the world is dealing with, including us. I mean, this last rain we got was like 3/4 of an inch in half an hour. So it's, you know, there's no pipe that can handle that amount of water in that amount of time. And that is really tough. It's like everybody getting in their car and trying to leave peas, you know. And eventually they get out, but you have the bottleneck. The only other thing I would add is Gretchen touched on this very lightly. Staffing. We're down staff, and these are people on the ground.
Right.
So I mean, we can sit here and talk all day about, you know, these great plans, but who's gonna build them? Where the material is gonna come from? Pipes taking 6 months, a year to get. I mean, all these things, we're thinking way ahead we were talking about generators the other day, and it's like, well, 18 months for a generator, it's almost scary. So I know the president talked about a funding plan for police and that, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of federal money to support police, but it would, like, can we get the same thing for people to do water quality? I mean, it's a grand vision, but you know, it's tough. I mean, we're competing with the shipyard that is, you know, going Gonzo, Sig Sauer, Lonza, you name it. All these places, which are wonderful business, wonderful for the seacoast, but it's difficult for us to, you know, attract and get and compete and retain and, you know.
That's very true. And not just the water quality, but running your sewer plant, running your water department, all of that stuff. It's hard. No, you pull the best and put them in.
We've had people come and, you know, they've been interested in coming to work for us, and then they come into our facilities and their eyes are just bugging out. And I think, you know, it's a great job, it's a great place to work, but it's a lot to ask of somebody, to say, you know, you're gonna be, you know, somewhat responsible for running this facility, and then it's tough. It takes a whole different type of person to run water and wastewater than it did 20, 30 years ago. You used to just turn the pumps on and turn the chlorine on, you know, drive to the, you know, process your sludge and drive it away, but it's tough.
Great.
On that note.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't want to diverge too much.
Absolutely true. All right, I'm gonna Katie, are you available to share Rochester?
Thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've noticed I'm having some connectivity issues. My IT department's looking into it, but every couple of minutes or so I get kicked out and it takes about a minute for me to reconnect, which is why my camera's off to help with the connectivity issues. So I can go through and maybe you can bear with me if I get kicked out for when I come back in, or I don't want to be too disruptive. I don't know if you have a different approach you'd like to take. We
Oh,
can.
go for it. That
Okay.
it is what it is.
Okay, well, if you lose me, I'll be back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
So for our planned structural BMPs, we have Colonial Pines Phase 3, which is in progress. Drainage infrastructure improvements are about 80% complete. We're anticipating completion by the end of 2022. Stratford Square Roundabout. This project, Phase 1 is complete. We are entering Phase 2. We're in the process of awarding that contract and construction will be going through 2023. Woodman area. Go ahead.
No, that's,
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard a question.
no, you're good.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question. Has that one been designed?
Stratford Square.
Yeah, the Stratford Square roundabout.
Yes, we're in the, so we already have the utility portion complete and now we're getting into the actual construction phase.
Okay, cool.
Woodman area improvements. We awarded that construction contract in April and that will be ongoing through 2023. Union Street Municipal Parking Lot. The conceptual design is in progress on this project right now and final design is forthcoming within the next few months. This is a very exciting project. There are a lot of BMPs that are integrated into this, right downtown, walkable from City Hall. So it'll be a great project, both in terms of functionality, but also where we can use it for demonstrations as well. Wakefield Street reconstruction. Design consultant has been selected and the design phase will be continuing through 2023. This one's going to take a little bit more time for implementation. Could somebody scroll down maybe? I can't pull up my PDF and I see it up on the screen. Thank you. Non-structural BMPs. Much like Dover and Portsmouth, we have a lot of the same activities in regards to street sweeping, leaf litter management, catch basin cleaning. We're continuing to maintain our goal of 25% of all catch basins on an annual cleaning basis. And we are continuing to advocate for some sort of fertilizer program that's going to require some assistance from the state in terms of the regulatory side of things. Jamie, could you scroll down, please? Thank you. Other efforts. Continuing existing structural BMPs, the municipal BMPs. We have more than 70 in our asset management program, and we're beginning to track for improved maintenance. We are also, within the next few months, working on entering them into PTAP as well. Colonial Pines Phase 3 again, looks like we have a little bit of repetition here. But again, that construction will be completed by the end of this year. Nitrogen source identification report. Our draft report was finalized this summer, and for 2023, we're reviewing potential catchments with high loading and BMP potential. So that's in progress. And then again, like the other communities, we've had our ongoing public outreach and education. We've been distributing, based on the seasons, targeted messaging throughout the community in regards to grass clippings, fertilizer, leaf litter, and septic system maintenance. Other efforts continued. We're continuing our enforcement of stormwater ordinance and use of PTAP. Excuse me. And we have just hired our third assistant engineer position, which is very exciting. This position will focus on stormwater projects. It took a long time to fill this position, almost a year. So are very excited to have this person hit the ground running soon. And then again, we continue to advocate for septic system programs, working with New Hampshire DES. That will continue through 2023. And our work group meetings for our water pollution flooding reduction study will continue through 2023. Thank you. Our pilot project is the septic receiving facility upgrade. That evaluation has concluded and we are moving forward with the construction, which is estimated for the end of 2023. That did determine that receiving septic at the headworks did not significantly impact secondary or tertiary processes in the facility. Additional initiatives. We are anticipating our design, bid and construction by the end of 2023 for the septic facility receiving upgrade. Again, that's moving forward. And our carbon storage and feed building is progressing. Excuse me. It's about 90% complete and will be completed by fall, by October, actually. Okay, the aeration automation project is another one that is close to completion. Again, by the end of October, that will be moving online. Sewer System Master Plan is in progress. That's an ongoing effort. Smoke testing occurred over the summer, and we're going to continue on that planning effort throughout 2023, ultimately working towards a final master plan. And I believe we already touched on the nitrogen reduction report. That's an ongoing effort. Okay, and then I think this is the last page, the non-point source co-benefits. And I think based on the EPA comments, we're going to probably regroup and also collaborate with our municipal partners on further working out the estimated reduction for this piece. I know that's been a challenge on our department with some of these projects in really honing in on numbers for this. So we'll continue to work on that reduction, those reduction columns, I should say.
Well, thanks, Katie. We made it through.
Thank you. Sorry for the coughing in between there.
Oh, you're good. Thanks for joining us. All right, any questions for her? Okay, well then I think your last comment leads really well into the PTAP progress in year one report. So again, I talked about this at the beginning of the agenda, but what we just went through, oh, actually, I'm sorry, do Newington or Exeter, do either of you want to share updates on your nitrogen reducing project?
Sure, I did not bring a report to share with
That's fine.
everybody, but Exeter has been working really hard on a number of fronts, very similar to what people have already reported on.
Right.
But right now, probably our primary focus is in the Salem Street area. It's an older neighborhood with poor condition sewers, leaking sewer laterals. We're replacing the sewer mains. We are actually replacing the private sewer services to the house. We'd have $1,000 incentive to do that for each private property owner, and anything above that they have to pay. It's including replacing over 50 catch basins with deep sumps.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of big improvements in that one fairly tight neighborhood. And that work has been going on for the last year, and it will be continuing into the spring of next year. Then similar to that, we have our next utility replacement project is going to be in the West Side Drive part of town, which is again, a neighborhood of vintage 1960s that was installed in a very poor area adjacent to the Exeter, adjacent to the Little River. Terrible drainage, lax drainage, a lot of sumps that are sending clean stormwater into the sewer system. So we're developing right now, it's in design with Underwood engineers, looking at what we can provide for alternatives for drainage. We also have to replace a water main just because it's spacey and it's very shallow and we're going to be hitting it. And we're also going to be reducing the pavement width of the road, which is almost 40 feet wide. It's one of the, it's you can land an airplane in that neighborhood. So that's a great opportunity again to kind of just reduce the overall drainage needs. That's been in design for we did some preliminary study work this past year. Again, with $75,000 from New Hampshire DES, but we're entering the full-blown design right now, and construction is slated for next year if we can get the warrant article in spring. We're also School Street will be the next neighborhood. Again, a full utilities project area. That's kind of in the Lincoln Street train station area, very congested. Our most impervious neighborhood, if you will. It has the most, we have the most to gain by reducing some of the inflow into that area. So that'll be coming probably 3 or 4 years out. We've just awarded construction of the Swampscott River sewer siphons, which we're extremely excited about. This has been a real concern for us and we've been holding our breath, but we do have a contractor. That work will be starting in October. And related to that is the next sewer shed up gradient is the Webster Station. It takes flow from Portsmouth Avenue, one of our, again, biggest developed areas. And that work is in design right now. So those are all great. We're also moving forward with another dam feasibility study, which I realize isn't directly nitrogen, but it certainly has a huge impact on water quality. Continuing work with VHB, who did provide us with the Great Dam removal project. So it's a familiar organization and approach, but every project is completely unique, and it'll be interesting to see how that rolls. That work is really going to get going shortly. That's the Pickpocket Dam. Did I not say Pickpocket? I apologize. That's the next dam upstream from where Great Dam was in Exeter, several miles upstream. And then a couple of things that are very unique that might be a little different for Exeter. We've been working closely with our town planner to develop ways to encourage infill development rather than expansion development, just to try and preempt some of that, expansion that goes on more than it needs to. So he's really engaging with that, and I think we're going to see some traction there in the next. It takes a while, obviously, for the regs to get in, and then find developers who will choose to do that, and we have to make sure you have high enough incentives to get that to happen. We're doing a lot. We did look at the Clean Sweep program, which I think we mentioned the name, but looking at how we might be able to modify what we've been doing for sweeping to really make a more targeted approach in the fall and improve our removal efficiencies for nitrogen. We're doing work through New Hampshire DES 319 grant monies on another alternative in the Link Street sewer shed area. And I have to confess, I don't know what the alternative is, but we've been looking at a lot of basically infiltration improvement, infiltration gallery. We're continuing work on a septic, promoting advanced septic treatment providing an incentive for property owners, and we haven't fully fleshed that out, but we've been in conversations with the select board and how we might be able to promote that, and how we might target it to where we don't necessarily want to promote it completely townwide. We want to promote it in places where it's in close proximity to
Yeah.
water. And I think fertilizer program is another area that Exeter's had some good work in the past, and we need to continue to make efforts there. And then I think for us, II removal is a huge piece. I think everybody else has mentioned that. That may not get as much attention when we talk nitrogen, but it so relates to what plant performance and environmental impacts happen. So we're going to be charging forward in several ways there. So good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Rich, can I just say something
Yes,
about Clean
please.
Sweep, because a lot of people have mentioned it. So Clean Sweep was actually a project that was initiated by PrEP. There was some money that Durham allocated PrEP to do things around nitrogen around the Great Bay. One of those was developing an expert elicitation panel. So convened a bunch of experts to look at street sweeping credits. And what came out of that was a pretty innovative measured approach. So when we take credits for street sweeping now, it's all modeled based on area swept and technology used and frequency. The measured approach is you pick it up, you measure how much you pick up, and you get credit for it. University of Minnesota has done a ton of work on actually analyzing street sweeping collections, and they developed this measured approach. And probably a factor of 10, we see
Yeah.
potential increases in the load reduction from measured to
Load reduction credit.
load reduction credit, yeah, about 10 times.
Hmm.
And it seems to be, for operators, it seems to be pretty, and the exciting part is simple. You don't have to deal with a model. If you pick it up, you get credit for it. And so it's really incentivizes cleaner streets. So we're going to be rolling that out. Thanks to Danielle and Mel Cote from EPA. They sent a letter of support for using the process and experimenting it in the Great Bay. And so we're going to be working that into PTAP. So, next year we'll have a new method. So that's pretty exciting. And realistically, it's all based on some of the research that USGS has been doing in Wisconsin that shows the loading, especially nutrient loading. They focus on phosphorus because they're in Wisconsin, so nitrogen. But it's the same thing with nitrogen. They find around 70 to 80% of the phosphorus load, and same thing for nitrogen, it's very similar trend, occurs during the fall. So if you think about the loading, it's so disproportionate. Right now, we sweep the streets and there's a load reduction you get no matter when you do it. So the emphasis here is if we're going to target street sweeping, we do it in the fall. And disproportionately, that's where the highest nutrient load is. So it's kind of innovative that we have this new method, and then also we have a time period to really focus, So that's Clean Sweep.
On the street sweep, and the reason my community does it in spring, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave that there for the whole season, or you add
No, we're advocating sweeping and, so it's just in the spring that we're not saying don't do it. Absolutely do it in the spring, pick up your salt and sand, but in the fall, there needs to be a larger emphasis on collecting the debris. Yeah, yeah, that and some. So sweep in the spring.
Well,
focus
I like
sweeping in
the
the fall.
idea of credit.
Yeah. And the issue with the credits is there's a reduced credit in the spring and fall because it's so sediment driven. So all the characteristics of what you pick up in the spring are very different than in the fall, naturally. So that's exciting.
All right.
I think mine's simple. Plant is running below 5, they call them nitrogen. The town, there's like a few catch basins down underneath the highway. Those had been vacuumed out early spring. that have probably never been done in 10 years. So those are done, there's not really any, it's a small rural town, 700 people, it's not much. There possibly could be a new development of 14 houses, but it's been at the state. 6 months. Pretty much it.
That's good, though. Yeah, you're cleaning catch basins in 10 years, that's awesome.
Correct, I
You're doing
agree.
street sweeping.
Yeah, well, one of my commissioners, chair of commission. It got done.
It's good.
To those catch basins, it's a rural town, they have so much impervious. That we can do a lot of stuff. So, you know, is there any way, if I know, focus? Reduce.
I worry about here, they have ponds in New England, that all the flow goes into. One of them all possibly gonna be sold and torn down. At that point.
We will get redeveloped. I will tell, and unfortunately, I don't know how much I can know about this, but they do have the Southeast Watershed Alliance regs are in Newington, even though they're not in the MS4 community. So all of the redevelopment, all the redevelopment, assuming they're not granting waivers, is subject to all of those regs that are in the Southeast Watershed Alliance that focus on redevelopment and predictions and stuff like that. So they're poised to have substantial projection based on that. And then you're talking about your 14. I have no idea, I've never seen the plan, but I know that there are regulations if it's for the incorporates. And then I think that down to their planning department. I don't know how successfully it's been. Getting money.
So we did Milton, we did Rollinsford, and yeah.
Fred, I mean, I don't know about this, but
There's
we're a solely consider. Now I can talk.
wrong doing to. And struggle.
Yeah.
And I. Got enough, I can't even find somebody.
We're tired too.
Not. I mean, it's not, so, but.
Yeah. All, again. Where,
Then.
I went.
I'll
Say
say,
that.
I know.
Hey, we're having difficulty hearing you guys. We've lost your video feed.
Okay.
Going low bandwidth.
And he's, let's just be.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's really broken up.
Yeah, no audio and frozen video on my end.
Talking.
Yeah, we're.
Bring back. Is it required?
Oh, that's all. Get it out. Microphone.
No, the audio quality is still very poor.
Helps everybody. And we can say, you know, more uniform reporting.
All right, are you, and if I do.
Yeah. I know.
No, it's still real choppy.
All right. Yep, okay, in the interest. I don't know what.
Can they-
I'm not saying.
I turned the camera off. So it's just sound.
That's sounding a little bit better, but
All right.
Yeah, we're just blessed with the share.
You're blessed, okay, so I'll send you the. Yeah.
Not.
Yeah, what it looks like. Portsmouth.
Well. Well, I wondered, different. Different, this, I don't think it's a big trend, really big, a lot of this stuff, we've been talking, you see this PTAP, which Jim was about to share, you can see. Right. Phosphorus reduction, boom, 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 deep community. And others. He's also, it's an entire. We still have our training wheels on as we're. Be able to see some land use changes, that would sort of. Supplement the original commission is doing, which is, 5-year implement land use changes, which is, I think, your understanding of land use change. You are able to track detail. So somebody has been raising. As EPA also raised, we're not gonna have time to go through all of the EPA comments. I just wanted to put that out there. So let's talk about PTAP. And everybody, I encourage you to really get your communities to input information into PTAP.
So what, how long do you want me to talk?
We've got 15 minutes,
Okay, 15 minutes.
20 minutes.
So,
Sorry, Jamie.
up front, the database is working really well. We're always improving it. We just went through a bunch of improvements. Jamie McCarty's really helped us out, increasing the functionality. Like he said, we've done it to a point where you can actually look at individual reports. So if you were going through the planning board efforts and you had a project and you want to verify and validate that a single project met the 80% TSS or 90% TSS, it really doesn't matter, 50 or 60% phosphorus and 50% nitrogen reduction, you can do that using the database. And it's been set up, I think Dover, Exeter, Portsmouth have made this part of their planning process. So for new developments, the developer goes in and puts the information in. So pretty slick. And then you can actually evaluate what they put in. So where we are now on the municipality side is we want to get everybody up to the same level. So we have people that are crushing it right now, and we have people that haven't put anything in. So I think we're here with DES to provide the technical assistance you guys need to get you from wherever you are to, you know, gold star users. The benefits of using this is we pump out a report, and we can do this annually that can basically meet just about all the criteria that at least EPA was commenting on Appendix C. So when we read EPA's comments, we're like, yeah, we can do this. So this year, I think, is about getting people proficient with the use of the database, because the quality of the information into the database dictates the quality of information that you get out. So we also just developed a batch import feature. So the city of Rochester's consultants reached out to us and said, you know, we've got 70 BMPs that we want to enter. And you can enter them one by one. It takes some time, but we developed a kind of spreadsheet where they can just fill out the spreadsheet and we can one-time batch it into the database. So, you know, the key there is just that the features and the attributes all have to line up with our database. So the import sheet matches the way we track and account for the attribute data in the database. So we're going to be, I think Rochester's working on that now to get all their stuff in. And we'll be working with UNH to do it as well. The key here is for the municipalities, your responsibility is municipal directed BMPs. So anything that you do on your municipally owned land, that includes your non-structural stuff as well, have to be updated. Exeter, you guys actually have the most things in the database.
Yeah.
Not that we're measuring, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that we have to meet with your team, and because one of the things, and this is again a suggestion from Jamie McCarty in Portsmouth, is we've been working on this for about a decade. If you think of when did the first PTAP meeting happen? 2015. So not quite a decade, almost. Okay. One of the things that we had multiple meetings on is how do we track projects from planning board through to build, because they can change too. You know, it's not always that what gets approved in the plan doesn't change by the time it goes in the ground. So we have a lot of classification features in the database, and what the principal function of the town administrator, and that's a bad word, it's the municipal administrator, whoever is managing the inputs in the database from your town. What PTAP really does is it allows a user authentication. So pretty much anybody can get a permission to put things into the database. They get binned into your town, And what your municipal administrator does is say, yes, this is a development that we're considering in our town. This isn't some kooky, Russian hacker, right? Because we get probably 3 or 4 of those a week. Just, people trying to get access to the database. The gatekeepers are the municipal administrators. So you also have the municipal administrators are also have the responsibility of ushering that project through as it moves through various phases. So for Exeter, you have a lot in the database, and all you really have to do is go through and say, this is a project and it was constructed. Because the database itself only counts things that are constructed. So you can have things in the database that are planned, that you're tracking and have been approved, but they don't get accounted for until they're in the ground. So that's the key feature. I mean, it's pretty slick now, and thanks to the input of the users, and Jamie has helped immensely to help us come up with these feature classes and the classification system. And I think it works really well, but it does, that's your responsibility as the administrator. And I think that's the problem with Exeter's. And this is something we just recently changed too. And I think Jen Mates had been doing a lot of the work, and now we're gonna get someone else.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We do have, I passed out this matrix, so much like the matrix Sally provided, we're just listing like who's putting stuff in. There's some communities that are doing really good on the structural controls, and they haven't entered the non-structural. The non-structural you have to do every year, and you have to, so it's possible that your street sweeping is the same every year, but you just have to renew it, and especially as many of you look at enhancing sweeping efforts. You'll put new data in and move that into, once it's completed, move that into approved and constructed. That's pretty much it. There's also a lot of things in the database as we have all these users. There's things that we noticed, particularly about external data inputters, like consultants that might be doing a development. There's some features that are really important. If you don't select the BMP type, we can't give you credit. If you don't select a design storage volume, we can't give you credit. And so some of the errors, and I'll send the files out. We've tracked everybody that's put data into the database, and we've identified what the major issues are, whether it's your classification system or whether you need to put an infiltration rate in for an infiltration.
Yeah,
BMP.
that happened to us all the time.
Well, what we did after responding to all the inputs is we actually hardwired that feature to any infiltration system. If you select an infiltration BMP, the database requires you to put an infiltration rate. So, over time, as we advance this, we're also improving on the programming side. And with UNH Research Computing Center right now, we have a real wizard who is just on top of all this for us. So he's actually a nationally ranked chess player. And it's so fun to work with because we ask for something and he does it. So it's a great time to, be trying to break the system too and giving us feedback to, hey, this doesn't work. Because Aaron Dane is the guy, and he's very responsive to our requests. So I think it's really good news, and it's fun things happening. The last thing I'll touch on, I think, is in the back of your report is land use change tracking that we have developed a reporting function in actual PTAP. So we removed this from the municipal administrators. They can't do that, but we felt that this is what we'll do annually for you. It tracks land use change in your community over time, and it gives you a rough idea of your efforts to date. So when you look at the land use change table, the one thing we go back to, this is Exeter. And again, we just have to get in and classify everything. The effective impervious cover is really what is tracking what you're doing with the existing impervious that you have in your community. That should be a negative number now. So for Dover, it's like -70. They have collectively disconnected 70 acres of impervious. So we do a very simple calculation of what that means for nitrogen load, but it's just it's a simple calculation and it gives you an idea of. So what this report does is it separates, I'll pick on Durham because they're not there, and I'm from Durham, so I can pick on Durham. Durham has some entries, it's all associated with basically Riverwoods, that big, we've been to Durham, it's the big, community center. And that is a new development that took like 16 acres of forest and turned it into 10 acres of impervious and, 14.5 acres of commercial land use or institutional land use. So that obviously has a big negative on the nitrogen load. And what they do is they're accounting for treatment of that area. So all the impervious cover that was associated with that development is going through appropriately sized and cited estimated stormwater control measures. And that's what we're accounting for. The PTAP land use report shows that they really haven't reduced any effective impervious cover. And we know they have, they just haven't integrated it into the database. So UNH has done a lot and we'll be working with UNH to get their stuff. So those numbers will change. Finally, on land use change, because I had mentioned that the feature classes of how we track land use change are numerous. And depending on what land use data set you use, they could be different. And this is one of the things, so, databases don't always talk to themselves because the way we classify land use is different than the way the FACT does it. And we're now working with EPA and EPA ORD to test hydrologic response unit modeling for the Great Bay. And this is something we've done with hotspot maps already. At that level, we can easily track long-term land use change over time. And that's really where we'd like to be. So we're really in conversations now, and EPA, I think, has been amenable to helping between DES and EPA and UNH. We will be working to track long-term land use change over time in a 5-year increment, basically as the impervious cover layer gets updated. And that's what we key into because, right now we're experimenting with the NLCD data set, which is a very coarse land use classification that's updated, I think, every 4 years by NOAA. And that somehow more reliable sometimes than what we get. Because for the last land use classification we have is 2015. And we have yet to see the new classification come. That's something that's orchestrated by the planning commissions. So suffice it to say, we really think that the best way to focus on land use change is at the regional JS level. And that also allows you as a municipality to really focus on nitrogen reductions and focus on the work that we all have ahead and that you all talked about today. So I think with all that said, we hit almost every target in the response from EPA.
Yes. Yep. Great. Jamie.
Less than 15 minutes.
Very helpful. Thank you. Well, I think.
Well, this is largely that, Ted was kind of our long-term champion and he made all this happen 10 years. So.
Yes.
And Sally, of course, been in the trenches.
Sally, of
Sally
course.
did the fall. Yeah, and for those of you who've been involved with PTAP, it's kind of a proud moment because where we started in 2015, we're a long way.
Well, and I think the big takeaway is I think you're learning so much more now that people are doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, yeah, I think Jamie, the party gets a huge
Yeah.
plus. It's just making it more functional. And it still is going through those growing pains. That's okay. I think you've got some data here to share. Everyone has got to make sure we have opportunities for Sally and Jamie to go meet with the planners, the whomever in these smaller communities. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of them on the call today, but and make sure that stuff's getting implemented.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy. Like, Dover, we talked the other day and you had the same problem with that classification. We got it done in an hour.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it wasn't difficult.
Yeah.
I would just say, if, you know, as you post this and stuff, just, it's all footnoted, that, you know, it's draft, it's work in progress. It's really just to get it out there to help us, you know, continue the dialogue and feedback on improving it. Because one thing we are looking at, you know, as we look to the stormwater utility, are, you know, potential credits. And so, you know, how do you do assign credits, and to what, you know, someone puts a rain garden in, or, you know, how much are they gonna get? I mean, I think we're really feeling like, okay, PTAP would be the method whereby they submit through that, and if it's approved through there, then, you know, they would get reduced
Yeah, so
stormwater.
let's talk about that just a little, because my intention is that we'll produce these annual reports for you and provide them to you. And that will be like an annual effort that we'll do, mining data from the database. My recommendation is this data that I've already sent to Jamie and Gretchen. We'll send it out, and maybe you post it on your website with those caveats. So I would rather you be in control of how this data is used than me, because realistically, if you tell me that you don't, you know, if you told me you didn't want this data out, I respect that. This is your effort, and how that your efforts get portrayed, for me, it's a math problem.
Yep.
And then I would rather you deal with the political problem, if there is. I don't
No.
There shouldn't be. I mean, it's all good stuff, but I don't want to wade into, you know, telling your community how you should use the data. I will help you with the math.
And Jamie, is this summary, are these reports all of the projects that are at the, what is it, approved
And constructed.
and constructed status for all time up until whatever date you pulled it?
So that is the elephant in the room. It's associated with
Oh, sorry.
No, it's associated with long-term operation and maintenance. Right now, there's no sunset structural credits, meaning you put a BMP in the ground, you get credit in perpetuity for right now. I fully expect, as we build this out, that there will be maybe it's a 5-year sunset, or a sunset on your structural credits that gets renewed once you click a box and verify operation and maintenance.
Mhm.
So I imagine that will be a really good add-on and an ability to track operation and maintenance. Realistically, you know, the training wheels are on. Let's get good at getting the data in. And so far, there's been no decision like that. And this, whether you're doing it in PTAP or anything else, you build the BMP, you get credit forever. And
there's no filtration of, is it a municipal BMP or something that was installed on a private site through site development? It's just anything that's in the PTAP system for our municipality.
Right. Yeah. And we are tracking information about who owns it. But right, you know, so there's a lot of helpful, right? And there's a lot of cool things that you can do. We're tracking all kinds of information. The key is what's important to report.
That's right.
And so, again, I think the emphasis is let's get good data in. Let's get it into our planning, planning, I guess, approach, so that people are helping you put stuff in. And then once we all get proficient, we can start to explore, like, how else can we use this?
I agree with that.
Yeah, because, you know, if we start collecting inspection and maintenance reports for old BMPs, then maybe we should that would be, you know, a reason to then put it into PTAP, because we know that particular BMP, even though it was installed 10, 15 years ago, is still in good functioning condition.
And honestly, for Dover, who we work with, and Portsmouth, they've been part of a student project that our seniors do, and we've been doing just that, putting BMPs in the database. This is something I think we have to open the conversation with EPA about. What my recommendation to them is that we focus on BMPs from 2010 forward, and I'll tell you why. It's because that's whenever we started to talk about baseline was originally developed by the 2014 Gibbon FIS, and that's a 2010 data set.
Mhm.
So basically, anything beyond 2010, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna get credit for it, but it's part of the baseline. And so focusing on 2010 moving forward, what we did is we developed a 4-step visual indicators that the students did, and it was really effective. They went there, they say, can water get in? Can water get out? Is there any visible evidence that the system is not performing? And that's how we validated function into the database. So, Portsmouth, Exeter, Dover, Rochester, the communities that have done a lot of work already, UNH, let's get it into the database and get credit for it. For like a Rollinsford, I think they should start fresh. I don't know. The question is it worth the time and effort to bring that stuff up? It might be. It's really something, they need to consider whether they have the resources to do this type of effort, go out there, inspect. So that's the other cool thing. It kind of answers these long-term questions that we really haven't even thought about yet, and you might have thought about, like, when does this credit sunset? But, I think that's something in the future.
Is it gonna mess things up if we start putting stuff in that's older than 2010, just because we want to use PTAP to track these BMPs out in the world?
So, I can't speak for EPA, but I actually like the effort, because what we realized with our students is they had eyes on these things that might not have been touched for years. And they were able to tell both Portsmouth and Dover, it's like, you gotta send someone out to maintain it.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
totally agree. And that also pulls into that 319 project we were talking about, where we've got these old detention ponds that really weren't doing water quality. What are they doing now? Re-looking at it. I think that's how you start.
I look at it as a net benefit, but again, these are questions that we really haven't even talked about as a group. None of this has really even come up in PTAP. We've been focused on how do we link it?
How do we make it work? Yeah.
But yeah.
But now that it's working, yeah, it's a valuable tool for a bunch of other things, I think.
Because if Jamie, you're going back to a 2004 BMP and you go through this visual checklist, that's a move in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
Amen.
So I would propose, so talking about the dashboard, which we've talked about a number of times, the information that we've received from PTAP, along with some other information about, land conservation, but for the most part, we're going to focus on nitrogen, phosphorus, TSS, land conservation, and what was the one more that we talked about? But
yes.
But no, yeah, I mean, you can chart that, but anyway, we're gonna kind of keep it simple, just like the PTAP. Put this into the database with all sorts of caveats that it's as good as the information that we received and not necessarily fully representative of everything happening. And we're gonna put that out there. That'll be a tool that you'll be able, it's very simple. It's not gonna be a full report. It's just gonna be 5 things based on a map, showing the progress, and we're gonna be able to start showing progress, and you can bring that to your community, to your city councilors or whomever you want to bring that to. And I think that's something, Melissa, you've been looking for, and hopefully as we keep going, that information is going to become more and more useful, and we can keep building out as we see it makes sense.
And I just want to pick
Yeah,
up
go
on the
ahead.
usefulness of the data and sort of sharing it with our, elected officials and looking to get that buy-in in terms of projects. I also like the fact that, very clearly you have the sediment removal as well, because that is a big factor to talk about. We get some real bang for the buck. Sometimes the nitrogen numbers seem low, but there is this other water quality benefit. And certainly when we get those bigger storm events, as we're getting now, that's a real value from my understanding of our water quality impact. So the fact that you've got a report with both on there, I think is really helpful as we take it to our governing bodies and are looking for that money and that buy-in to continue to do these projects. So I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
And I'll just add, just to put a teaser out there as we're talking about, things. The metrics that we're using are consistent with everything in appendix F of the MS4 program. And because it's consistent and it's done all the same way, we also have access to bacteria removal. We have access to zinc removal. We have access to costs. So, again, as we start to build out, we can add those features in because we're tracking the information. And if an emergent pollutant comes up or contaminant that we really want to start to track, since we're doing, we would work with EPA to develop those credits. And, so that's the benefit of all doing it the same way.
Yeah.
You get access to this adaptable data set.
Well, thank you, Jamie.
That's
Thank Ally,
it.
you guys, awesome. All right, we'll open it up, stakeholder comment.
Yeah, so we did have a meeting of the stakeholder committee, a few members that were able to join. And it was very, very interesting to have people from communities who are not living and breathing this stuff every day, trying to make sense of what the heck is going on here. And I want to just share with you a few questions that came up, right? And I tried to do some explaining, but I think it's more important for you to hear questions that people are asking. Some of which I think will be greatly enhanced by much of what has been discussed here today with the CAP and other things. But okay, one of the questions: how are communities accounting for and manage for new development? And community members are looking around, there are reports and fractions, seeing a lot of rapid growth, especially multi-family housing. So there's increases at the wastewater facilities as a result of the growth. There's also, of course, site changes and stormwater impact. So the question is, are we really reducing or just slowing the rate of increase? And that, I think, is a really, really great question. And when you see negative numbers, like negative numbers for disconnected impervious or whatever, that's an answer to that question. But just and maybe the dashboard can try to illuminate some of this. Are we just reducing the rate of increase, or are we actually reducing it and against what baseline? So that's one big question. And sort of related, what are the municipalities doing that is new as a result of this permit? So a lot of what's reported out on the spreadsheets is stuff that was already in the pipeline, is part of your capital improvement programs. What is happening that wasn't already happening? And so, a question, there was some, I think Rochester reported that they've done a hotspot map. I think Portsmouth has done that as well. How is that illuminating where activity is?
So like what time frame, like this permit cycle?
The general permit.
Yeah,
Or
what's your question, Mike?
Well, what have we done new? I mean, Portsmouth, we created a stormwater division, so that's huge.
Yeah,
We've got
there's a lot of
staff,
structure to that.
I was just wondering if.
Yeah, I think that is, again, these are the questions. What new as a result of the permit? And
That's good.
it's hard to know from just looking at the spreadsheets, that this wasn't something that was kind of already happening, but is happening in response to the permit. And I think it was very helpful.
It's an outreach challenge for us. Because
Well, and Melissa and I have talked about this. There are different people that want to hear different things. And so some people want to hear that you're not, it's not this crazy unfunded mandate world. And, it's like everyone's, we are being fiscally conservative, but we are doing work, we are making improvements within the CIP framework, not just all the same costs, but there are certainly like a stormwater vision and like incorporating things. So
Mask.
there are different people that want to hear different things. And so, yeah. That's
Well, I think it's, yeah, it's sort of in part, again, driven by a lot of reporting in the spreadsheets on, these projects that were in the pipeline, a long time since. And, so would this have happened, whether we had this permit or not have this permit, so,
Do you have any municipal representatives at the stakeholders?
no.
Okay, that may be, that when you do the next round, maybe it would be useful, because then we might be able to help explain some of that. So just know if that's helpful, you let us know, and I think we'll find a.
There, I
But it's
always
useful.
invite the
Yeah.
stakeholders committee members to join the MAM meetings.
Yeah.
But.
But when I hear a question like that, that's a sounding board for how you're perceived.
Yeah.
And how you, so I
Right.
don't think the answer is you need to convince that person that came up with that question. That's a blind spot, I think, in the community and something that we have to work on to demonstrate.
Precisely, Jenny,
Yeah.
and that's why I think it's good for you just to hear the
Yeah.
question. And I'm not trying to explain to them every single, thing or pretend that I, represent municipalities, but to share what it is that people kind of fundamentally care about and are concerned about, and how this process can help to answer some of these questions. There was questions about, they look at, again, they're going based on the information that's provided. So they see like, a $7 million project in Rochester that's reducing 6.5 pounds of nitrogen and asking why is, and then, another project in Portsmouth or somewhere else where, you're getting 75 pounds or 126 pounds, and of course, they're not apples to apples and they understand that, but how is it that a project that's, a full road reconstruction that's listed here as part of a, nitrogen control permit is doing, has such limited, so what are the water quality units? What are the treatment systems that are sort of incorporated into those projects that are producing such a relatively small kind of net gain? Those are questions that came up. And again, I don't know the details of what's going on in each of these projects, so I couldn't really answer the question, but
Are you able to send these questions to me?
I can do that, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
And I know we're running up against time, so I just want, then again, broadly, they were reading what 3 of the municipalities in Maine are doing, wondering what are the other 4 communities doing since they're not required to report. And then, of course, well, what are the other 5 towns doing that aren't even part of MAM? So, when they're thinking about, is this permit actually moving the needle? How do we know? And I think that is like the $19 billion question, all right? So, and again, maybe the dashboard will help, maybe more communities participating in this process would help. And then, of course, EPA, I know, is reaching out to the non-MAM communities, but, again, just thinking holistically, and I think that's kind of where some of these community members are coming from. I would say there were many other questions and discussions, but I think those were probably the high level questions that I wanted to share with you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's great.
That's helpful.
Very cool. Any other comments?
Oh, yeah, one of the other questions that did come up is that everybody's talking about, advocating for state regs versus the fertilizers and septic systems. And the question, are municipalities actually advocating for those, actively advocating, or just saying, we want to see that? That was the question. And again, I had, I'll just give it that.
No, that's awesome. If you send those, because I have answers to all of those. So that would be great. And I'll touch on that under other business. So public comment.
Awesome. So just, I know we are out of time, so in 1 minute. First, I'm sorry that you have me and not someone more knowledgeable and experienced like Mel or Art. I'll do my best. So really quickly from EPA's lens, it's been exciting to be here today. It's really exciting to hear all these different projects. I love to hear that stormwater is bleeding into everyday planning. We're doing this project, how we're doing about stormwater. That's so exciting. It's exactly how stormwater management needs to be seen as something you just, it's part of your project planning process, and that's awesome. You know, the general permit was in its kind of larval stage, and now it's kind of going into juvenile or young of year in sort of fish term. So, you know, PTAP as a tool for you all to track what we want to do in 5 years is to, you know, understand as a benchmark how you're getting credits on nitrogen construction. So we can look at it and say, you know, overall, this is how it went. And in some cases, maybe the wastewater treatment plant is going to be, you know, the key aspect of how you achieve nitrogen reduction. But we also want you to be able to get credit for street sweeping or all of these other projects that you're doing. So PTAP is a tool built perhaps before a purpose, but now it has a purpose. And that report that you get as an annual report is everything that we need to see. So one of the, you know, bullet points of our comments, we'd really like to streamline the process so that at the end of the year, you're not doing any redundant work to tell us what we need to do. You already have everything that you at your fingertips. You're welcome to give us anything you want, but the lists right now are a bit vague on BMPs. What the power of PTAP is, it's sort of looking at, okay, this was the project and they put in an infiltration basin of this size and we've got this much, and they put in rain gardens and we've got this much. And I think another power of PTAP is everybody's on the same page. We know how those credits are being calculated and everybody's is being calculated the same way. So you're all being compared equally. So all of those things, you know, as much as I can encourage you to use PTAP, it's open source software, it's free for you all to use. There's technical assistance for you to tap into. So we really encourage that because for us, it will make everything easier when we go to reissue the demo permit. And thank you very much to Katie and Sally for building that. And yeah, that's it. I think overall, it's really exciting. I'm really excited about the work, and you all are doing an amazing job. Cool. Okay. Thanks.
I don't think Mark could have said it better.
No, I know. Thank you for coming ahead.
Or Mel.
All right, any other public comment? Okay, other business, we've talked about this, we've got this letter from EPA. We've also, I'm gonna hopefully get some, in writing the comments from the stakeholder committee. And I'd like to do, if we think this is appropriate, a subcommittee similar to what we do in our Seco Stormwater Coalition and compile a response to this, because I truly believe that we've got good answers to all of this stuff. And then potentially start looking at how the output from PTAP, if it needs to be adjusted at all, how that's adjusted, potentially look at adjusting our annual report forecasting, making sure we're doing that. So do we think a subcommittee is a good way to do that? Yeah. And who wants to be on the subcommittee? The same thing that happens with Stormwater Coalition. Well, let's I know it's always Jamie and me.
Let's Portsmouth talk about it because
Okay.
we're filling in some gaps, but
Perfect.
this is important. And I think if we streamline the reporting, it's going to help with the education piece that Melissa's looking for and is for the stakeholders. So, we'll talk.
Perfect.
Some
Figure out how
are
we-
folks that are, you know, I've got to be careful what I promise. But I know it's important, and we definitely, you know, just because we hadn't done the same reporting format, we want to make sure that it's getting out there. And so I've got to talk with existing and continuing staff to figure out how we can participate.
Perfect. All right, cool. Well, reach out to me about a
Yeah.
subcommittee. And then you know, I'd like to make a goal of our January update, which is our 6-month update. Now, if you read the letter, you'll see EPA has encouraged us to move our submission to October 1, which is exactly what we want. Right in line with MS4, everything, so it's perfect. I still say we keep January, February as our goal for a your check-in. And at that point, I'd like to be able to sort of review and make a path for the second half of the year.
So they don't want this September.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good. What we're gonna do with the annual report that we submitted in July didn't have all of these updates because timings were off.
Okay.
But we do that. Training wheels, I think we're getting better and better. I'm happy with what we're doing right now. So cool. That's-
Katie's got a hand up. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Katie. Sorry. Thanks, Jim.
Just a straight hand.
Well, like if she's not, I do
Yep,
have-
I'll just figured I'd bring it up.
I just wanted to add that Exeter did receive our new individual permit, and, the general permit.
Okay.
So that is effective with our November reporting. That'll be our first month that we're reporting in, with our new individual permit, NIPS permit, and our, general permits.
So is that complete, like does that you're off the AOC and now on to the general permit?
Well, that's what we assume. I do want to follow up with EPA to make sure that that's a correct assumption. I don't like making assumptions, but that's my understanding.
Would that change for how you fund funding participation?
So we're right in the middle. And I've got to get with Katie because we haven't paid our 2022 dollar amounts into, we have it, just haven't cut the check. Now that we're part of the permit, that was one of our things that let's just give it to Matt rather
To
than
do it
going
from
to
there.
crap.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we'll figure that out, but our next meeting will start looking at budgeting. So that'll be a good
Yeah.
piece to know just how that's all gonna break out.
And we had always figured that by 2023, it was gonna be 2 years. So this year was just kind of a transition year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow,
When is the next meeting?
that's a great topic of conversation. When do, I would say end of October, early November, that'll give us time to talk about budget and then vote on that budget in December. So I look at some dates. I've got November 3rd as a possibility.
You know, for me, I
Okay.
can always designate someone else if maybe. So,
I can't do the 27th. I don't know.
if the third works for everyone else, then if I'm not here, I can delegate to her.
Okay. You sure? Yeah. Okay. There's a bunch of us are doing that building support for stormwater, which is, I think, would be a meeting heavy day. We did that on the 10th. So
So what day?
November 3rd. From the 10 to noon work. All right, anyone want to host? We
I
can
mean,
do,
we do it here, I just need to get technology.
no, that's okay. We'll
Okay.
move around. You want to do Portsmouth? Awesome, Portsmouth. No, you're good. From 10 to noon. And then we'll just let you guys can figure out what room or whatever you want to do. All right, cool. Then with that,
Oh, I had a quick question if we have a second and if I don't get kicked off again, I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
So we've received the second and final invoice for the year from PrEP for monitoring activities. And the 60,000 turbidity synthesis task is included in that. My understanding is that the scope on that has changed a little bit. The initial scope or original intent was to perform an evaluation of historical data and gap analysis without actual fieldwork or data collection. And ultimately what's been brought forward in coordination with Brown and Caldwell is to utilize some of the funds for some field work that was conducted by a researcher named Atsushi Matsuoka. So they're looking to have about 34,000 of that go towards this field work and also address the original intent. So my question to the group is, in moving forward as fiscal agent, if we have an invoice come forward that is outside of the scope or a little bit different than what was voted on when we approved the budget, would you like me to bring that back for a vote before we process payment? Or would you prefer that we have Brown and Caldwell weigh in, and if Brown and Caldwell signs off, then we process? But just wanted to get some direction on moving forward in the event this happens again.
I think where we're talking about a 30, I think if we're, I don't feel like purchasing agent. If it's $1,000, probably we can do it administratively, but where we're talking about a $30,000, it should come back
The executive committee.
to the executive committee. Yep.
That
And
makes sense.
if it needs to be expedited, we can do it electronically. We don't have to physically be present, but we can, if it needs to be handled administratively, we should be able to do it electronically.
As one person committee, there's 30,000, a lot just quickly sign off. That's
Yeah.
That's why I'm suggesting the reason we designed an executive committee is so we could quickly
Do stuff.
respond to invoices, notice a meeting,
there a way to
24 hours
budget it
notice.
for next year? I mean, I don't have a problem.
No, it's within the budget. There's no additional budget. It's just an adjustment to the scope.
Okay,
Which I think certainly needs to be even approved, but I think at the executive.
Or we could do it now. I mean,
Or do it right now.
has Clifton signed off on this? No?
Yeah.
If Clifton signed off, I know Portsmouth would support that as long as it's within the,
Intent of that.
with the intent of doing that work, and there's just an adjustment of the scope, because we've been relying on the expertise of Brown and Caldwell to help us define the scope and make sure that we're gonna get the environmental benefit that we're looking for, the dollars are spent. So if Clifton's good with that adjustment in scope, I know Portsmouth would be good. So if we want to handle it right now, I certainly, it would make sense to me if in fact Brown and Caldwell has said, yes, this is an adjustment in the scope of work that we would support, and we're not actually appropriating more money. We're simply changing the scope of work.
I thought
So,
we were changing for money. but- Okay.
no.
You missed all of it. But the thought is that we could do it with the executive
Or we could do it right now.
in
Yeah.
the future, but right now, if we could do it right now, that would be awesome.
I agree.
So are you able to,
Clifton and Brown and Caldwell has supported the scope of work change, correct?
Yes, correct.
Then I make a motion to approve the release of the funds for this adjusted scope of work.
Second.
all right, motion by Suzanne, second by Dennis. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, Gretchen Young, yes, Dennis Messier,
Yes,
Jennifer Perry,
Yes.
Suzanne Woodland,
Yes.
and Katie Ambrose.
Yes,
Awesome, thanks, everyone, good work.
thank you.
Now we don't
Motion
have
to adjourn.
well, I thought it was out
No.
of budget,
Nope. But it took me,
but I don't like spending money, but.
Right. But I think it is very important moving forward
Yeah.
that when those things do come up, that the executive committee has the opportunity to get input from Brown and Caldwell or
Yeah.
anybody else, but that we make the physical decision.
absolutely.
Any motion to?
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote, Gretchen Young. Dennis Messier,
Yeah.
Jennifer Perry,
Yes.
Katie Ambrose,
Yes,
and Suzanne Woodland.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry for the late.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Don't worry about it.
thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jerry.
everybody.
You think so?
Take those motions.
Thank you very much.